You watch him drop into space that used to be his kingdom. Nobody follows him there anymore. That's the problem. In 2010, a player like this could win you a Champions League final with a single flick of his boot. By 2020, he couldn't get on the pitch. What changed wasn't his talent. What changed was the geometry of the entire sport underneath his feet. Think about what a classic number 10 actually was. A free artist. A player who roamed the space between midfield and attack, picked the ball up on the half-turn, and decided, almost alone, when the killer pass should be played. Zinedine Zidane. Juan Roman Riquelme. Francesco Totti. Kaká in his Milan palm. These were players built around freedom. Freedom from pressing duties. Freedom from tracking runners. Freedom, most of all, to think. But football doesn't reward freedom forever. It rewards whoever solves the current problem fastest. And by the early 2010s, the problem had changed completely. Here's the shift most fans never noticed happening in real time. Pressing systems got smarter. Much smarter. Teams stopped defending zones passively and started hunting the ball actively, high up the pitch, in coordinated units of 6 or 7 players moving as one block. This is what analysts call a high press, and in plain English it simply means this: your opponent refuses to let you settle, chasing you down the second you receive possession, forcing you to make a decision in under 2 seconds instead of 10. A classical 10 lives on time. He needs that pocket of space to receive, look up, and orchestrate. Take away the pocket, and you take away the player. That's exactly what happened. Jurgen Klopp's Borussia Dortmund in 2011 offered an early preview. His gegenpressing system, hunting the ball back within 5 seconds of losing it, meant opposition playmakers were swarmed the instant they touched the ball in central zones. Dortmund won the Bundesliga that season playing football that looked less like chess and more like a hurricane with a game plan. The classic 10 had nowhere to hide inside that storm. Then Pep Guardiola accelerated the extinction from the opposite direction. His Barcelona, and later his Bayern Munich and Manchester City sides, didn't eliminate central creativity. They relocated it. Instead of one free playmaker floating between the lines, Guardiola spread creative responsibility across multiple positions. Fullbacks who tucked inside like midfielders. Wingers who cut infield to overload the half space. A deep-lying playmaker, like Xavi or later Rodri, who controlled tempo from a deeper starting point where the press couldn't easily reach him. Notice what happened there. The creative burden didn't disappear. It got decentralized. Why keep one luxury player who needs protecting from the press, when you can build a system where 4 or 5 players share his old responsibilities while also defending? This is the tactical inversion at the heart of the story. The number 10 wasn't killed by a lack of talent. He was killed by inefficiency. A single free-roaming genius is a liability in a game built around structured pressing triggers and rest defense, that invisible shape a team holds while attacking so it can instantly stop a counter the moment the ball is lost. Rest defense sounds abstract, but picture it simply: even while your team attacks, 2 or 3 players quietly stay positioned to smother any immediate breakaway. A traditional 10, floating high and central with no tracking responsibility, is the first hole in that shape. Coaches began to see him not as an asset, but as a tactical vulnerability standing in plain sight. Look at Mesut Ozil's decline at Arsenal for the clearest human example. In November 2015 against Bayern Munich, he was still capable of the kind of vision that unlocks a defense from nothing. But as English football's pressing intensity rose year after year, especially once Klopp arrived at Liverpool in October 2015 and Guardiola arrived at City in the summer of 2016, Ozil's lack of defensive work rate became impossible to hide. Arsene Wenger himself admitted the game had shifted around players like Ozil faster than those players could adapt. By 2018, pundits weren't debating his skill anymore. They were debating whether his profile could survive in the league at all. Isn't that the real tragedy here? Not a loss of quality, but a loss of habitat. So where did all that creativity actually go? It didn't vanish. It migrated. Kevin De Bruyne is arguably the greatest attacking midfielder of his generation, and yet he barely resembles a classic 10. He starts deeper, drops to collect the ball under pressure, and is trusted defensively in a way Zidane never was. Bruno Fernandes presses relentlessly before he ever gets to create. Even Lionel Messi, football's most gifted individual talent, was systematically moved from a wide starting position into false nine and deep playmaking roles precisely so Barcelona's structure could protect and disguise him within the press. The statistics back up this migration with brutal clarity. Data from Opta and StatsBomb over the last decade shows a measurable decline in minutes played by players classified in a pure, attacking midfielder, central, role across Europe's top 5 leagues, alongside a rise in double pivots and hybrid 8s who combine box-to-box running with creative output. Meanwhile, XG, or expected goals, a metric that simply measures the statistical quality of a chance based on similar past attempts, increasingly gets generated from wide overloads and half-space combinations rather than a lone playmaker threading a ball through the middle. Here's the moment that made this undeniable to everyone watching. Real Madrid's Champions League run under Zinedine Zidane as a manager, ironically, no longer built around a 10 at all. On May 26, 2018, in Kiev, Real Madrid beat Liverpool 3-1 to win their third straight European title. Not a single player on that Madrid team occupied a pure number 10 role. Isco floated between lines occasionally, but the platform beneath him, Casemiro screening, Kroos and Modric rotating tempo and creation between them, was built on distributed responsibility, not a single free artist. Compare that to Real Madrid's Champions League win back on May 25, 2002, at Hampden Park, where Zidane himself, as a player, produced arguably the greatest individual goal in the competition's history, a looping left-footed volley that came from exactly the kind of freedom his own tactical successors would later remove from the game. The system that made him a legend was already being dismantled by the time he coached its final form. What does all of this actually mean for the sport's future? It means football didn't become less creative. It became less individually creative and more collectively creative. The romantic image of a lone genius conducting an orchestra from the center circle has been replaced by an orchestra where every musician can also conduct, and every musician can also sprint back to defend. Pep Guardiola summed up the philosophy plainly when discussing his approach to positional play. Football is a game of spaces, he said, and the team that controls space controls the game. A classic number 10 controlled one space beautifully. Modern systems control every space simultaneously. Think about your own life for a second. How often do you rely on one brilliant idea, one gifted person, one moment of individual inspiration to solve a problem, when the real solution was always a system where everyone shares the load and covers for each other? The number 10 didn't die because he stopped being special. He died because football, like most things worth mastering, eventually rewards the collective structure that can adapt over the lone genius who cannot. That's the quiet lesson hiding in his obituary. He didn't vanish because he became isolated in a wide expanse of red space on the pitch. He vanished because everyone around him learned how to occupy it first.